Jack Wilson stood at the bedroom doorway, watching his wife, Megan, pack her suitcase with meticulous care. At 35, the high school physics teacher still found himself marveling at Megan's beauty, her auburn hair catching the morning light, her green eyes sparkling with excitement. After 10 years of marriage, she could still make his heart skip a beat. "Are you sure you have everything you need for the conference?" Jack asked, leaning against the door frame. Megan looked up from her packing, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I think so. 5 days in Chicago. I want to be prepared for anything." Jack nodded, his eyes drawn to the lingerie Megan was carefully folding and tucking into her suitcase. He recognized the delicate lace as part of the set he had given her for their anniversary just last month. A warmth spread through his chest at the thought that she wanted to wear it even on a business trip. "Taking the special occasion stuff? I see," he commented with a grin. Megan's cheeks flushed slightly. "Well, you never know. Might have a fancy dinner or something." As she continued packing, Jack couldn't help but notice how much effort Megan was putting into her appearance. She had spent an extra 20 minutes on her makeup that morning, carefully applying eyeshadow and mascara she usually reserved for date nights. Her hair was styled in loose waves, a far cry from her usual messy bun for work. "You're going all out for this conference," Jack observed. "Must be some important people there." Megan shrugged, not meeting his eyes. "Just want to make a good impression, that's all." Jack watched as she spritzed herself with the expensive perfume he had included with her anniversary lingerie. The familiar scent of jasmine and vanilla filled the air, stirring memories of intimate moments shared between them. As Megan zipped up her suitcase, Jack felt a twinge of something he couldn't quite name: unease, suspicion. He pushed the feeling aside. This was Megan, his wife, his best friend, the woman he trusted above all others. "All set?" he asked, forcing a smile. Megan nodded, wheeling her suitcase toward the door. "I think so. I'll call you every night, I promise." She leaned in, pressing her lips to his in a lingering kiss that left Jack slightly breathless. Her fingers trailed along his jaw as she pulled away. "I'll miss you," she murmured. "I'll miss you too," Jack replied. "Have a great time. Don't forget to bring me back a souvenir." Megan laughed, the sound light and musical. "Of course. Love you. Love you too," Jack called as she headed down the stairs. He watched from the window as Megan loaded her suitcase into her car and drove away, waving as she turned the corner and disappeared from sight. The house felt strangely empty without her presence. Shaking off the melancholy, Jack headed to the kitchen to make some coffee before grading papers. He had just settled at the dining room table with a stack of physics exams when his phone buzzed with an incoming text. Expecting it to be Megan letting him know she'd arrived safely at the airport, Jack was surprised to see an unknown number on the screen. His brow furrowed as he read the cryptic message: "Your wife isn't who you think she is. Check the guest list for the Palmer Hotel." Jack stared at the text, reading it over and over. A chill ran down his spine despite the warm spring day. Who would send something like this and why? His first instinct was to delete it and forget he'd ever seen it. This had to be some kind of prank or scam. But a nagging doubt took root in the back of his mind, whispering that maybe, just maybe, there was something to this. Jack set his phone down, trying to focus on grading, but the words of the text kept floating through his thoughts, impossible to ignore. After reading the same question 3 times without absorbing it, he pushed the exams aside with a frustrated sigh. "This is ridiculous," he muttered to himself. Though he claimed to trust Megan completely, even as he spoke the words, Jack found his hand drifting toward his laptop. It wouldn't hurt to just check, he reasoned. Then he could put this whole matter to rest and return to his work with a clear conscience. He navigated to the website for the Palmer Hotel in Chicago, scrolling through the information about their conference facilities. He found a form to check event registrations, which he filled out with fingers that trembled slightly. He entered the conference name, Chicago Educators Summit, and the attendee, Megan Wilson. He hit submit and waited, his heart pounding in his chest. When the results loaded, Jack felt as if all the air had been sucked from his lungs. The screen displayed a stark message: "No attendees found matching your search." "That can't be right," Jack said aloud, as if speaking the words could somehow make them true. He tried again, meticulously checking his spelling. Still, nothing appeared. With a growing sense of unease, Jack pulled up their shared digital calendar on his phone. He scrolled to the current week and saw Megan's conference clearly marked for the next 5 days. But there was something else, an event he didn't recognize, hidden under the conference listing. A&M's special project, Jack read, his stomach twisting into knots. The event was scheduled for the exact dates of the supposed conference. INM. The initials tugged at a thread of memory. Suddenly, it clicked. Ian Reeves. The new PE teacher Megan had been spending a considerable amount of time with lately. They were supposedly collaborating on a cross-curricular fitness and art program for the school. Jack leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He thought back over the past few months, and small details he had previously dismissed suddenly took on a new and ominous significance. Megan staying late at school several nights a week, claiming she was grading projects. The new clothes she had bought recently, form-fitting dresses and blouses that Jack had admired but found a bit out of character for his usually casual wife. The way she had become more protective of her phone, subtly angling the screen away from him when she was texting. "No," Jack said firmly, shaking his head as if to physically dispel the unwelcome thoughts. "I am allowing my imagination to run wild. There must be a reasonable explanation for all of this." But doubt had taken hold, spreading tendrils of suspicion through his mind almost against his will. Jack found himself walking to Megan's home office. He told himself he was just looking for the conference itinerary. Surely she had left a copy somewhere. He rifled through the papers on her desk, finding nothing but student artwork and lesson plans. Opening drawers yielded similar results. Jack was about to give up when he noticed a thick art textbook on the bookshelf, a scrap of paper sticking out slightly. Heart pounding, he pulled the book from the shelf. A folded note fluttered to the floor. As he opened it with trembling hands, Jack unfolded the paper, immediately recognizing Adam's messy scrawl. "Can't wait for our special getaway. You're my muse and my passion." The words blurred as tears filled Jack's eyes. He sank to the floor, clutching the damning note as his world crumbled around him. How could Megan do this? 10 years of marriage, of building a life together, and she had thrown it all away for what? A fling with a handsome new teacher? Jack was not sure how long he sat there, overwhelmed by shocking grief. Eventually, the initial tidal wave of emotion receded enough for him to think somewhat rationally again. He needed more information before confronting Megan. He needed to be absolutely certain. Wiping his eyes, Jack returned to his laptop. He pulled up Adam's social media profiles, scrolling through recent posts. His heart sank as he saw a status update from just yesterday, heading out for a rejuvenating beach retreat. Time to recharge and find new inspiration. #Oceana Resort. The Oceana was a luxury hotel about 3 hours' drive from their small town. Jack had always wanted to take Megan there for a romantic weekend, but they had never quite been able to afford it on teacher salaries. Apparently, Adam had deeper pockets, or perhaps they were splitting the cost. The price of their illicit rendezvous became starkly clear. A swift online search revealed to Jack that Adam's wife, Emily, had posted about traveling out of state for the week to visit her ailing mother. The fragments of this grim puzzle were assembling themselves with nauseating clarity. Jack's hand trembled as he lifted his phone. He desperately needed assistance, someone to guide him through this living nightmare and to help him determine his next course of action. Almost without conscious volition, his fingers dialed a number he knew by heart. "Jack, what's going on?" Sarah Chin's voice was imbued with warmth and immediate concern. His former student, now a close friend, possessed an innate gift for perceiving the unspoken. She instantly discerned that something was profoundly wrong from the mere tone of his call. "Sarah, I need your help," Jack managed to utter, his voice fracturing under the strain. "Can you come over?" After only a brief hesitation, Sarah replied, "Of course. I'll be there in 10 minutes." True to her word, Sarah arrived shortly thereafter, letting herself in with the spare key Jack had entrusted to her years ago. She found him seated at the dining room table, his gaze vacant, fixed upon the scattered evidence of Megan's betrayal. Sarah absorbed the scene in an instant, her investigator's intellect swiftly assembling the grim tableau. She settled into the chair opposite him, reaching across to gently squeeze his hand. "Tell me everything," she urged softly. And so Jack did. His voice was hollow, a desolate echo, as he narrated the morning's devastating events. Sarah listened without a single interruption, her expression growing progressively more troubled as his account unfolded. When Jack finally fell silent, Sarah remained quiet for a long, pensive moment. At last, she drew a deep, steadying breath and spoke. "Jack, I am so sorry," she began, her voice heavy with empathy. "But I have to tell you something. I have suspected this was happening for weeks now." Jack's head jerked upward, shock and raw hurt flashing across his face. "What? Why didn't you say anything?" Sarah raised her hands in a placating gesture. "I wasn't certain, Jack. A while ago, I saw Megan and Adam engaged in what appeared to be an intimate conversation at a local cafe. But I told myself I was reading too much into it. They worked together, after all. I did not want to create problems in your marriage over an unsubstantiated suspicion. What might have been nothing." Jack nodded slowly, the hurt fading from his eyes. He knew Sarah would never intentionally keep something like this from him without good reason. "So what do we do now?" he asked, feeling lost. Sarah's eyes took on a determined glint. "Now we confirm it beyond any doubt. I have some resources through work that can help us track Megan's phone location. If she's really at this ocean resort with Adam, we'll know for sure." Jack hesitated, uncomfortable with the idea of invading Megan's privacy so blatantly, but the memory of her lies steeled his resolve. He nodded for Sarah to proceed. It took only a few minutes for Sarah to pull up the information on her tablet. She turned the screen so Jack could see the blinking dot clearly marking Megan's location at the Oceana Resort. "What now?" Jack asked, his voice hollow. Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Now we confront them. But you shouldn't do this alone, Jack. Let me come with you for support and safety." Jack started to protest, but Sarah cut him off. "I'm not taking no for an answer on this. You're in no state to drive anyway. We'll book a room under my name so they don't see you coming. Then you can decide exactly how you want to handle the confrontation." As Sarah made the arrangements, Jack felt a strange calm settle over him. The initial shock and pain were still there, but muted now beneath a steely determination. Megan and Adam thought they could make a fool of him. He would show them just how wrong they were. "I know how I want to handle this," Jack said as Sarah ended the call with the resort. She raised an eyebrow questioningly. "My way," Jack replied, a hint of his old confidence returning. "And I'm going to need your help setting something up before we go." Sarah nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Whatever you need, Jack. Let's make them regret ever betraying you." As they gathered what they needed and headed out to Sarah's car, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. A maelstrom of emotions swirled within him: anger, hurt, and betrayal, tempered by a grim satisfaction as the plan took shape in his mind. One thing was certain: by the time this confrontation was over, Megan and Adam would wish they had never even considered their little secret getaway. Before leaving, Jack secretly set up a live stream link to the school's social media account on his phone, planning ahead for the confrontation to come. He wasn't sure yet how he would use it, but he wanted to be prepared for any possibility. As they drove toward the Oceana Resort, Jack's mind raced with possibilities. How would Megan react when she saw him? What excuses would she try to make? And most importantly, how would he ensure that she and Adam faced the full consequences of their actions? The answers to these questions lay ahead at the luxurious beachside resort, where his wife thought she was safe from discovery. Jack's jaw clenched as he stared out the window, watching the scenery blur by. Soon, very soon, he would have his answers and his revenge. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Jack and Sarah pulled into the elegant circular driveway of the Oceana Resort. The sprawling beachfront property exuded luxury, with its pristine white facade and meticulously manicured gardens. Under different circumstances, Jack might have marveled at the beauty of the place. Now, it only served as a painful reminder of Megan's betrayal. Sarah squeezed Jack's arm reassuringly as they stepped out of the car. "Remember," she whispered, "we're just a normal couple here for a relaxing weekend. No need to draw attention to ourselves." Jack nodded, forcing a pleasant expression onto his face. He'd had plenty of practice hiding his true feelings over the past 24 hours. What was one more deception in a sea of lies? As they approached the reception desk, Sarah effortlessly slipped into her role. She laughed and flirted with the concierge, spinning a tale of a much-needed romantic getaway. Jack played his part, smiling warmly as he stood beside her, all the while concealing the storm of emotions brewing just beneath the surface. He wrapped his arm around Sarah's waist, attempting to ignore the knot tightening in his stomach. "And here are your key cards, Mr. and Mrs. Chin." The concierge said with a courteous smile. You're in room 712. I hope you enjoy your stay with us. Thank you so much, Sarah replied warmly. I'm sure we will. As they made their way to the elevator, Jack's heart began to race. They were so close now, just a few more minutes, and he would be face to face with Megan and her lover. He took a deep breath, trying to center himself. Sarah squeezed his hand gently. You've got this, Jack. I'm right here with you. The elevator chimed, and they stepped out onto the 7th floor. The plush carpet muffled their footsteps as they walked down the hallway. Jack's eyes darted from door to door, searching for room 714, where he knew Megan and Adam were staying. As they approached their own room, Jack froze. Voices drifted from the next room over, voices he recognized all too well. Oh, Adam. Megan's breathy laugh sent daggers through Jack's heart. Tonight is going to be our most passionate yet. I can't wait to show you what I brought. I bet it's that little red number, Adam's deep voice replied. The one that drives me wild. God, Megan, you're insatiable. Only for you, baby, Megan purred. Poor Jack has no idea what he's missing out on. Sometimes I can't believe how oblivious he is. White-hot rage flooded through Jack at those words. How dare they mock him like this? His hands clenched into fists at his sides as he fought the urge to burst into their room right then and there. Sarah placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. Stick to the plan, she whispered. We've got them dead to rights now. Jack nodded jerkily, allowing Sarah to guide him into their room. He paced back and forth as Sarah quickly set up her recording equipment, positioning a small camera to capture the hallway and the door to Megan and Adam's room. Okay, Sarah said, double-checking the angle. We're all set. How do you want to play this? Jack took a deep breath, his mind racing with the confrontation to come. Taking a deep breath and squaring his shoulders, Jack declared, I want to knock on their door. When Megan answers, I want you to start recording. Can you do it on your phone so it's not obvious? Sarah nodded, pulling out her smartphone. Consider it done. Are you ready for this? As I'll ever be, Jack replied grimly. They stepped out into the hallway, Sarah positioning herself slightly behind Jack with her phone held casually at her side. Jack raised his hand and knocked firmly on the door to room 714. There was a moment of muffled confusion from inside, then footsteps approaching. Jack steeled himself as the door swung open. Megan stood there in a silky robe, her hair tousled and cheeks flushed. Her eyes widened in shock as she registered Jack's presence. Jack, she stammered, what are you doing here? Surprised, darling? Jack said, his voice unnaturally calm. I thought I'd join you on this teacher's conference. Megan's face drained of color. Behind her, Adam appeared in the doorway, equally stunned. Jack, I can explain, Megan began, but Jack cut her off with a raised hand. Oh, I'm sure you can, he said coolly. I'm very interested to hear how you explain being here with Adam when you're supposed to be at a conference in Chicago. Megan and Adam exchanged panicked glances, clearly trying to get their story straight. Jack almost laughed at how quickly their lies fell apart. It's not what it looks like, Adam tried, but his voice lacked conviction. Really? Jack arched an eyebrow. Because it looks like my wife is having an affair with a coworker. Please, enlighten me as to what's really going on here. Megan's eyes filled with tears. Jack, please, can we talk about this privately? Why? Jack asked, his tone deceptively mild. You didn't seem too concerned about privacy when you were mocking me a few minutes ago. What was it you said? That I'm oblivious to what I'm missing out on. Megan blanched, realizing they'd been overheard. Adam stepped forward, attempting to look authoritative despite being clad only in boxer shorts. Look, Jack, this is a private matter, Megan insisted. A private matter? Jack interrupted, his voice rising slightly. I think you lost the right to privacy when you decided to sleep with my wife. People were starting to peer out of their rooms, drawn by the commotion. Sarah stepped forward, placing a calming hand on Jack's arm. Maybe we should take this inside, she suggested quietly. Jack nodded, pushing past Megan and Adam into their room. Sarah followed, closing the door behind them. Who is she? Megan demanded, her shock giving way to indignation. This is Sarah, Jack replied calmly. My friend and witness to your infidelity. Witness? Adam sputtered. What the hell are you playing at, Wilson? Jack ignored him, turning to his suitcase. He unzipped it calmly and began removing clothes, laying them neatly on the bed. What are you doing? Megan asked, her voice trembling. Unpacking, Jack replied matter-of-factly. I've booked the adjoining room for the week. I hope you don't mind if I join your little getaway." "You can't do that," Adam protested. "This is our room." Jack fixed him with a steely gaze. "Actually, I can. This room is registered under my name and paid for with my credit card. You're welcome to leave if you're uncomfortable." Megan and Adam exchanged helpless glances, their romantic retreat crumbling around them. "Jack, please," Megan pleaded. "Let's just talk about this. We can work it out." "Oh, we'll talk," Jack assured her. "We have all week to discuss how you betrayed our marriage and made a mockery of our vows. But right now, I'm tired from the drive. I think I'll turn in early." With that, Jack calmly walked to the adjoining door, unlocked it, and disappeared into his own room, leaving Megan and Adam standing in stunned silence. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the cheerful sunshine a stark contrast to the tension simmering in rooms 712 and 714. Jack had barely slept, his mind racing with plans and possibilities. He'd spent most of the night coordinating, with Sarah coordinating the next phase of their confrontation for precisely 9 o'clock in the morning. Jack knocked on the adjoining door. When there was no response, he used his key card to enter. Megan and Adam were huddled together on the bed, appearing as though they, too, had slept very little. They started when Jack entered, followed closely by Sarah. "Good morning," Jack said pleasantly. "I hope you slept well. We have a busy day ahead of us." "What are you talking about?" Adam demanded, his bravado from the previous night noticeably diminished. Jack smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "We will have a little chat with Emily. I think she deserves to know what has been going on, don't you?" The color drained from Adam's face. "Emily? My wife. You can't." "I can, and I will," Jack interrupted. "In fact, I have already arranged it. She will be video calling in about," he checked his watch, 5 minutes. Megan burst into tears. "Jack, please don't do this. We can work this out between us. There's no need to involve anyone else." "You involved Emily the moment you decided to sleep with her husband," Jack replied coldly. "She has a right to know." The next 5 minutes passed in intense silence. Megan and Adam whispered furiously to each other, trying to come up with a plan, while Jack calmly set up Sarah's laptop for the video call. At 9:05 on the dot, the laptop chimed with an incoming call. Jack answered, and Emily's confused face filled the screen. "Jack," she said, peering at the camera, "what's going on? Is everything okay?" "Hello, Emily," Jack replied gently. "I'm afraid I have some difficult news to share with you. Adam and Megan are here with me." He turned the laptop so Emily could see the guilty couple huddled on the bed. Her confusion quickly turned to shock, then anguish as understanding dawned. "Adam," she whispered, What are you doing there? You said you were at a training seminar." Adam opened his mouth, but no words came out. Megan buried her face in her hands, unable to meet Emily's gaze. With as much compassion as he could muster, Jack continued. Master Jack elucidated the circumstances, recounting to Emily the illicit affair, the web of deceit, and the fabricated teachers' conference that had, in truth, been a clandestine romantic escape. Emily absorbed his words in a state of profound shock, her silence punctuated only by the tears tracing paths down her cheeks. When Jack concluded his account, she shifted her gaze to Adam, her voice choked with emotion as she uttered, "How could you? After everything we have endured together, I placed my trust in you." Adam faltered, offering feeble justifications and expressions of regret, but Emily interjected, her voice fracturing under the weight of her anguish. I cannot confront this now," she declared. "I require time to collect my thoughts. Adam, do not trouble yourself to return home. I will pack your belongings and have them delivered to your brother's residence." With those final words, she terminated the call, leaving a palpable void of silence in her absence. Jack shut the laptop and turned his attention to Megan and Adam, his tone subdued yet resolute. "I trust you both take pride in your actions," he stated. "You have not merely dismantled our marriages. You have inflicted pain upon innocent individuals in the process." Megan lifted her gaze, her eyes crimson and swollen from weeping. "Jack, please," she implored, "do not disclose this to anyone at the school. We would forfeit our positions, and our reputations would be irrevocably tarnished." Adam nodded with frantic urgency, adding, "We are prepared to do anything. Just, I beg of you, Do not expose us within our professional circles. Jack appeared to deliberate for a moment before nodding slowly in acquiescence. Very well, he conceded. I shall refrain from speaking of it at the school. However, in exchange, I require both of you to sign written confessions acknowledging the affair. It is only equitable that I retain some form of safeguard. Relieved by this seeming reprieve, Megan and Adam promptly consented. Sarah presented the pre-drafted statements, and they affixed their signatures without hesitation. Thank you, Jack, Megan expressed, a faint glimmer of optimism in her eyes. I am confident we can find a way to resolve this. Jack offered no reply. He merely gathered the signed documents and departed the room, with Sarah following closely behind. That evening, Jack proposed that they all dine together in the resort's main restaurant. Though Megan and Adam were reluctant, Jack insisted, suggesting it would be an opportune moment to deliberate on how they might proceed. The restaurant was bustling, filled with the lively chatter of vacationers savoring their holidays. Jack, Megan, Adam, and Sarah were seated at a table near the center of the room, an uncomfortable silence hanging over them as the waiter took their drink orders. Jack casually pulled out his phone. You don't mind if I check my messages, do you? He asked innocently. I want to make sure everything's okay back home. Megan and Adam shook their heads, relief evident on their faces at the break in tension. Jack tapped at his phone for a moment, then set it on the table, screen up. What Megan and Adam did not realize was that Jack had just activated the live stream to the school's social media account. The phone's camera was now broadcasting their conversation to hundreds of students, parents, and faculty members. So, Jack said, his voice carrying clearly in the busy restaurant. Let's talk about this affair of yours. How long has it been going on? Megan nearly choked on her water. Jack, she hissed, not here. Why not? Jack asked, his voice still calm, but loud enough to draw attention from nearby tables. I think it's time we got everything out in the open, don't you? Adam leaned forward, his face red with anger and embarrassment. Wilson, I'm warning you. Warning me. Jack interrupted. That's rich, coming from the man who's been sleeping with my wife. Tell me, Adam, how does it feel to betray not only your own wife, but also a colleague? People at nearby tables were openly staring now. Megan buried her face in her hands, while Adam looked as though he wanted to sink into the floor. Please, Jack, Megan begged. We said we were sorry. We promised we'd end it. What more do you want from us? Jack leaned back in his chair, a small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I want the truth, Megan. I want you to admit, right here and now, exactly what you've done. Fine, Megan snapped, tears streaming down her face. Yes, we had an affair. Yes, we lied about the conference to come here together. Are you happy now? Ecstatic, Jack replied dryly. And what about you, Adam? Anything you'd like to add? Adam fixed his gaze upon Jack, his jaw tightening with suppressed rage. This is blackmail, he snarled, the words sharp with accusation. No, Jack countered, his tone measured and deliberate. This is consequences. You both made choices, and now you are facing the results of those decisions. As Jack spoke, Megan's phone began to vibrate incessantly. She retrieved it from her purse, her face losing all color as she saw the torrent of notifications flooding the screen. Oh my God, she whispered, her voice trembling. Jack, what have you done? Jack picked up his own phone, terminating the live stream with a single tap. I have done precisely what I said I would do, he replied calmly. I did not inform anyone at the school about your affair. They discovered it for themselves. The full weight of their predicament descended upon Megan and Adam. Their phones were inundated with messages from colleagues, students, and parents. The live stream had gone viral within minutes, spreading through the school community like wildfire. You promised. Adam stammered, his face a contorted mask of fury and terror. I promised I would not say anything, Jack corrected him. And I did not. You did all the talking yourselves. Megan and Adam frantically attempted damage control, their fingers flying across their screens as they typed out messages and made calls. But the harm was irreversible. Their affair, their deceptions, their betrayal, everything was now exposed to public scrutiny. Jack calmly sipped his water, observing as their world disintegrated around them. Sarah placed a hand gently upon his arm, a silent gesture of solidarity. I believe I have lost my appetite, Jack declared, rising from his seat. Enjoy your meal. Oh, and do not concern yourselves with the bill. It is my treat. Consider it a parting gift for a decade of marriage." With that, Jack and Sarah departed from the restaurant, leaving Megan and Adam to confront the repercussions of their actions. The following morning, the resort's atmosphere was heavy with tension. News of the scandal had transcended the school, reaching the local community back home. Megan and Adam moved like pariahs, avoiding eye contact with other guests and flinching at every alert from their phones. Jack, in contrast, remained composed and self-possessed. He had spent the night fielding calls and, as Jack and Sarah enjoyed a tranquil breakfast on her balcony, the morning calm was interrupted by the arrival of Megan. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and she confronted them with visible distress. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded, her voice hoarse with emotion. "You've ruined everything." Jack set down his coffee cup and met Megan's gaze steadily. "I didn't ruin anything, Megan. You did that all on your own when you decided to betray our marriage." Megan's face contorted with a mixture of anger and desperation. "You don't understand. I was unhappy. Adam made me feel alive again. You were always so focused on your work, your students. Don't you dare try to blame this on me." Jack interrupted, his calm demeanor cracking slightly. "If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. We could have worked on our marriage. Instead, you chose to lie, to cheat, to make a fool of me." Sarah stood up, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. "I think I'll give you two some privacy," she said softly, retreating into the room. Megan's eyes followed Sarah, a spark of jealousy igniting within her. "Is that why you did this? You're sleeping with her, aren't you? This is all just revenge." Jack laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You really don't get it, do you? Sarah is my friend. She's been here to support me through this nightmare you've created. Unlike you, some people actually understand the concept of loyalty." Megan's shoulders slumped as the fight drained out of her. "What happens now, Jack? What are we going to do?" "We," Jack repeated, raising an eyebrow. "There is no we anymore, Megan. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." As if on cue, Adam appeared behind Megan, his face haggard. "We need to talk," he said urgently. "The school board is calling an emergency meeting next week. They want us all there to explain what happened." Megan turned to Jack, her eyes pleading. "Jack, please, you have to help us. If we lose our jobs." Jack stood up, his expression hardening. "I don't have to do anything. Anything, you both made your beds. Now you can lie in them," he added with a hint of sarcasm. "Although I suppose you've already been doing plenty of that." Adam's face flushed with anger. He took a step towards Jack, fists clenched. "You smug bastard. You think you're so much better than us." Jack didn't flinch. "I didn't cheat on my spouse. I didn't lie to everyone I know. So yes, Adam, I do think I'm better than you. And if you're smart, you'll back off right now." Something in Jack's tone made Adam hesitate. The physical intimidation that might have worked before seemed to bounce off Jack's newfound confidence. "This isn't over," Adam growled, turning to leave. "Oh, I think it is," Jack called after him. "By the way, I've already spoken to my lawyer. He'll be contacting both of you about the divorce proceedings." Megan gasped. "Divorce? Jack, no? We can work this out. Please, just give me another chance." Jack shook his head. "There are no more chances, Megan. You threw away 10 years of marriage for a fling. I deserve better than that. I deserve someone I can trust." Tears streaming down her face, Megan made one last attempt. "What about all our friends? Our colleagues? They'll take sides. It'll be so messy." "I'm not worried," Jack replied calmly. "I've been nothing but honest and transparent throughout this whole ordeal. I think you'll find that honesty goes a long way." As if to prove his point, Jack's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He glanced at it, a small smile tugging at his lips. "That was Karen from the PDA," he said. "She's organizing a support rally for me. Apparently, quite a few parents appreciate how I've handled the situation. They're calling me a role model for integrity." Megan's face crumpled. This was all going so wrong. She had never imagined her affair would blow up like this. In her mind, she would have eventually ended things with Adam, and Jack would have been none the wiser. Now her entire life was falling apart. "I think you should go," Jack said quietly. "Sarah and I have plans for the day, and I am certain that you and Adam have much to discuss." Defeated, Megan turned to leave. At the door, she paused, looking back at Jack with tear-filled eyes. "I do love you, you know. I never meant to hurt you like this." Jack met her gaze. his expression a mixture of pain and resolve. If you loved me, Megan, you wouldn't have done this. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's choosing your partner every day, through good times and bad. You chose Adam. Now you get to live with that choice. As Megan departed, her shoulders shaking with sobs, Sarah emerged from the room. She approached Jack, concern etched on her face. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Jack took a deep breath, looking out over the beautiful ocean view that now seemed tainted by the events of the past few days. "No," he admitted, "but I will be." Sarah squeezed his hand supportively. "You handled that incredibly well, Jack. I'm proud of you." Jack managed a small smile. "Thanks, Sarah. I couldn't have done this without you." As they stood there, looking out at the horizon, Jack felt a strange mix of emotions. There was pain, certainly, and anger, but there was also a sense of freedom, of possibilities. For the first time since discovering Megan's betrayal, he allowed himself to think about the future. It wouldn't be easy. There would be difficult days ahead. The school board meeting, the divorce proceedings, the inevitable gossip and speculation. But Jack knew he would face it all with the same strength and integrity he had shown here. Megan and Adam had made their choices. Now it was time for Jack to make his. And he chose to move forward, to rebuild his life on his own terms. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Jack felt a glimmer of hope. This wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. A week had passed since the fateful confrontation at the Ileana resort, but for the residents of Millbrook, it felt like an eternity. The small town of 15,000 was abuzz with gossip, whispered in hushed tones. Conversations in grocery store aisles and heated debates over coffee at the local diner. The scandal involving two of Millbrook High's teachers had spread like wildfire, leaving no one untouched. At the center of it all was Jack Wilson, the wronged husband who had exposed his wife's affair in a dramatic live stream that had since become the stuff of local legend. As he drove to the emergency school board meeting, Jack couldn't help but reflect on the whirlwind of the past week. The parking lot of the Millbrook School District office was packed, a clear indication of the meeting's importance. Jack spotted Megan's car and felt a twinge in his chest, a mix of anger, hurt, and something else he couldn't quite name. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself for what was to come. Inside, the tension was palpable. The usually spacious boardroom felt cramped, with extra chairs brought in to accommodate the crowd. Jack nodded politely to a few familiar faces as he made his way to his seat. He caught sight of Megan and Adam sitting as far apart as possible, both looking pale and drawn. The board president, a stern-faced woman named Eleanor Simmons, called the meeting to order. "We are here today," she began, her voice cutting through the murmurs, "to address the recent incident involving 3 of our staff members. We will hear from all parties involved before making our decision." Jack was called to speak first. As he stood, he felt all eyes on him. This was his moment, not for revenge, but for truth. Members of the board, fellow educators, members of the community. Jack began, his voice steady and clear. "I stand before you today not as a victim, but as someone who believes in the power of education and the responsibility we have to our students." He went on to detail his decade of service to Millbrook High, pulling out commendations, thank you notes from students, and evidence of the various extracurricular programs he had initiated or supported. Teaching isn't just a job. For me, Jack continued to pursue his passion, which was evident in every word he spoke. It was a calling. Each day, I strive to inspire my students, to show them the wonders of science and the importance of integrity. As Jack spoke, he noticed several of his current and former students in the audience. They nodded encouragingly, with some even wiping away tears. "I will not pretend that the events of the past week have not been devastating on a personal level," Jack admitted, his voice catching slightly. "But I have always taught my students that character is revealed in how one handles adversity. I chose to face the situation with honesty and dignity, not for my own sake, but for theirs." He gestured to the students present. "They are watching us. They are learning from us, not just in the classroom, but in how we conduct ourselves in all aspects of our lives." As Jack concluded his speech, a ripple of applause spread through the room. Eleanor Simmons had to call for order before inviting Megan to speak next. Megan approached the podium, her usual confidence noticeably absent. She glanced at Jack, then quickly looked away, unable to meet his steady gaze. "I know what I did was wrong," Megan began, her voice barely above a whisper. The microphone squealed, causing her to flinch. She took a moment to compose herself before continuing. I made a terrible mistake, but I am an excellent teacher. My students love me, and my art program has brought recognition to the school. Surely, my personal life should not affect my professional standing. Her plea was met with stony silence. Jack could see the board members exchanging glances, their expressions unreadable. Adam was the last to speak. He approached the podium with a swagger that seemed out of place given the circumstances. Look, he said, leaning into the microphone. What happened between Megan and me was consensual. It was a mistake, sure, but it is not as though we committed a crime. I have been nothing but an asset to this school since I arrived. The physical education program has never been stronger. As Adam persisted in diminishing his involvement in the affair, Jack observed Megan's countenance darken. It was evident that Adam's efforts to dissociate himself from the situation were not well received by her. After the three had concluded their statements, Eleanor Simmons called for a brief recess while the board deliberated. The tension in the room became almost unbearable as everyone awaited the decision. When the board members returned, their expressions were grim. Eleanor cleared her throat before addressing the assembly. After careful consideration, the board has reached a decision, she announced. Mr. Wilson, in light of your exemplary record and the professionalism you have demonstrated throughout this difficult situation, we see no reason to take any action against you. You will retain your position at Millbrook High. A smattering of applause broke out, but was quickly silenced by Eleanor's raised hand. As for Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Reeves, she continued, her tone noticeably cooler. Your actions have brought disrepute to this institution and violated the trust placed in you as educators. You are both placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending further investigation. It is likely that you will be transferred to different districts once this matter is fully resolved. The room erupted into a cacophony of voices. Megan burst into tears while Adam slammed his fist on the table before him. Jack, however, remained composed, accepting the decision with a quiet nod. As the meeting adjourned, Jack found himself surrounded by well-wishers. Parents patted him on the back, colleagues expressed their support, and students shared stories of how he had positively impacted their lives. One student, a shy girl named Emily, approached Jack with tears in her eyes. Mr. Wilson, she said, her voice trembling, I just wanted you to know that you're the reason I want to become a scientist. You showed me that I could do anything if I put my mind to it. Jack felt a lump form in his throat. This, he realized, was why he had chosen this path. He had become a teacher in the first place, not for recognition or accolades, but for moments like these. As he left the building, Jack noticed a group of parents huddled together, speaking animatedly. He caught snippets of their conversation, something about organizing a rally and showing their support for him. The news of the school board's decision spread quickly through Millbrook. Jack found himself at the center of a storm of public opinion, but unlike the scandalous whispers that had followed the initial revelation of the affair, the talk now was overwhelmingly positive. The local newspaper ran a feature on Jack, praising his dedication to education and his dignified handling of the scandal. The article painted him as a role model for the community, someone who had faced adversity with grace and integrity. A few days after the board meeting, Jack was surprised to find a crowd gathered outside Millbrook High as he arrived for work. Parents, students, and community members held signs with messages like, "We stand with Mr. Wilson," and "Integrity matters." Karen Thompson, the PTA president, approached Jack with a warm smile. "We wanted to show you how much we appreciate you, Jack," she said, gesturing to the crowd. "You've taught our kids more than just physics. You've shown them what real character looks like." Jack was overwhelmed by the support. As he made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and accepting words of encouragement, he caught sight of Megan watching from her car across the street. Their eyes met for a brief moment before she quickly drove away. The contrast between their situations could not have been starker. While Jack was being celebrated, Megan and Adam found themselves social pariahs. They were pointedly uninvited from community events, met with cold shoulders at the grocery store, and subjected to not-so-subtle whispers wherever they went. Megan, in particular, seemed to be struggling with the fallout. Jack heard through the grapevine that she had attempted to volunteer. At the local arts center, she endeavored to reclaim some measure of community support, Yet her overtures were met with courteous rejections and thinly veiled disdain. Adam, in contrast, appeared to be navigating the circumstances with considerably less grace. Whispers circulated of a heated altercation with a parent at a neighborhood coffee shop, and Jack had incidentally overheard his own students remarking on how Mr. Reed had grown increasingly abrupt and irritable in his final days before his administrative leave commenced. As for Jack, he immersed himself in his professional duties with renewed vigor. He volunteered to coach the school's science team, a role he had long aspired to undertake, but for which he had never previously found the time. Under his mentorship, the team began to thrive. Late evenings were devoted to the laboratory, collaborating with students on their projects, and in those hours, Jack discovered a profound sense of purpose, guiding young minds as they delved into the marvels of scientific inquiry. It was during one such session that he received the news that would irrevocably alter the course of events. Zoe, one of his most promising students, burst into the laboratory one evening, exclaiming, "Mr. Wilson, we did it! We qualified for the national championship." The room erupted in jubilant cheers. Gazing upon the radiant faces of his team, Jack felt a powerful surge of pride. This marked the first occasion in the school's history that they had advanced to the national level. As the exhilaration gradually subsided and the students began gathering their belongings to depart for the evening, Jack found himself alone in the laboratory. Seated at his desk, a complex tapestry of emotions washed over him. Pride in his students' achievement, certainly, but also a poignant, bittersweet awareness that this particular chapter of his life was drawing to a close. For weeks, he had been contemplating a significant change. The offer had arrived unexpectedly, a prestigious teaching position at a magnet school for science and technology in another state. Initially, Jack had dismissed the notion, for Millbrook was his home, his community. Yet, as the days unfolded and the burden of recent events settled upon him, the idea gradually began to take root. The following day, Jack arranged a meeting with Principal Rogers to discuss his decision. The older man listened intently as Jack explained his reasoning, nodding in understanding. "We'll be sorry to lose you, Jack," Rogers said, leaning back in his chair. "But I understand. Sometimes a fresh start is what we need. You've done great things here, and I have no doubt you'll continue to do so wherever you go." With the decision made, things moved quickly. Jack threw himself into preparing his students for the national championship while also making arrangements for his move. The news of his impending departure spread through the school and town, met with a mixture of sadness and well wishes. 3 months after the fateful day at the Oceanana Resort, Jack found himself sitting in his lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. The process had been surprisingly smooth. Megan, perhaps out of guilt or a desire to avoid further scandal, had agreed to Jack's terms without much fuss. As he walked out of the office, divorce papers in hand, Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was truly over. He was free to move on, to start his new life. The evening before his departure, Jack was packing the last of his belongings when the doorbell rang. He opened the door to find Megan standing there, looking small and vulnerable. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. "I need to get the last of my things." Jack nodded, stepping aside to let her enter. They moved around each other awkwardly, the familiarity of a decade together warring with the distance that had grown between them. As Megan gathered her belongings, she kept glancing at Jack, opening her mouth as if to speak, then thinking better of it. Finally, as she was about to leave, she turned to him. "Jack, I know I have no right to ask this, but is there any chance, any at all? I've changed, I swear. I still love you." Jack looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. He saw the woman he had fallen in love with. In the woman he had built a life with all those years ago, he saw not only the love they had shared but also the one who had lied to him, betrayed him, and mocked him behind his back. "Megan," he said softly, "I'm sorry, but trust, once broken, cannot be repaired, at least not for me, not in this case." Tears welled up in Megan's eyes, yet she nodded, accepting his decision. As she turned to leave, Jack stopped her. "Wait," he said, reaching for an envelope on the nearby table. "I wrote this for you. I think it might help provide some closure for both of us." Megan took the letter with trembling hands. "Thank you, Jack," she whispered, "for everything. I'm so sorry for what I did to you." As she walked away, Jack felt a chapter of his life truly close. He turned back to his packing, ready to face whatever came next. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Jack stood on his front porch, taking in the familiar sights of his neighborhood one last time. His car was packed, ready for the long drive to his new home. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a commotion down the street. To his surprise, he saw a crowd approaching. His students, led by the science team, along with several of his colleagues and community members. They gathered in front of his house, many holding signs wishing him well. The science team presented him with a scrapbook filled with photos and heartfelt messages. Colleague after colleague stepped forward to share how Jack had inspired them or made a difference in their lives. As Jack looked out at the faces of the people he had lived and worked with for so long, he felt a swell of emotion. This was what teaching was all about, not just imparting knowledge, but touching lives, building connections, and leaving a lasting impact. From the corner of his eye, Jack caught a glimpse of Megan watching from a distance. Their eyes met briefly, a world of unspoken words passing between them. Then she turned and walked away, and Jack refocused on the well-wishers before him. After many hugs, handshakes, and promises to stay in touch, he finally set off, carrying with him the warmth of their farewells and the hope of new beginnings. To stay connected, Jack finally settled into his car. As he drove away, watching Millbrook shrink in his rearview mirror, he felt a blend of sorrow and anticipation for the journey ahead. Miles down the road, Jack permitted himself a moment of reflection. The past few months had been the most trying of his life, yet he emerged stronger, more certain of himself and his principles. He was leaving behind the familiar, but he was steering toward new opportunities, fresh challenges, and a chance to influence even more young lives. As the sun ascended higher in the sky, Jack felt a profound sense of peace envelop him. Whatever the future held, he was prepared to confront it directly with the same integrity and fervor that had guided him through the turmoil. Meanwhile, back in Millbrook, Megan sat alone in her modest apartment, encircled by boxes of her possessions. She clutched the letter from Jack in her hands, reading it for what seemed like the 100th time. Tears traced paths down her cheeks as she absorbed his words, kind yet resolute, explaining why he could never reconcile and wishing her well in her future endeavors. She lifted her gaze to the photographs on her wall, memories of happier days, of the life she had recklessly abandoned in a moment of frailty. As the full weight of her circumstances settled upon her, Megan began to grasp the complete repercussions of her actions. She had lost not only her husband, but also her home, her career, her friends, and the esteem of an entire community. Sitting there, surrounded by the fragments of her former existence, Megan recognized that her journey of redemption was merely commencing. It would be a lengthy, arduous path, but as she folded Jack's letter and tenderly placed it in a drawer, she made a silent vow to herself to glean wisdom from this ordeal and evolve into a better person. The sun dipped below the horizon over Millbrook, casting elongated shadows across the town. In one car, a man journeyed toward a new future brimming with hope and possibility. In one small apartment, a woman confronted the formidable task of reconstructing her life from the ground up. From the ground up and in between, a community found itself forever altered by the unexpected guest of infidelity, which had shaken their quiet town to its very core. This is where our story draws to a close. Share your reflections in the comment section. Thank you for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. It would help me immensely. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.